Here in Frederick County, Maryland, are sick and tired of the overdoses, and they want dealers held accountable by charging them for the deaths. This week, 23-year-old Breonna Davis was charged with felony negligent manslaughter after allegedly selling a man heroin spiked with the lethal animal tranquilizer called carfentanil. The case dates back to 2017. Davis is being held without bail. Frederick County is so overwhelmed with opioids, it's the subject of a new documentary called Heroin's Grip. Filmmaker Conrad Weaver spoke while on tour in Ohio with the film.
I think the frustration with a lot of people who have experienced a fatal overdose in their family is that the laws in Maryland don't do much to put away these drug dealers who sell heroin or fentanyl or other substances that kill people. It's a frustration that I've heard directly from some of these families who've lost their loved ones, and the prosecutors need to go after these people, and regardless of how hard it is, we've got to get them off the streets and got to shut down their businesses.
But despite the applause for prosecutors here, Maryland's Court of Special Appeals has made it tough. The court recently overturned a similar manslaughter conviction, saying prosecutors failed to find, quote, a causal nexus between the defendant's act and the victim's deaths. We can infer the opposite, that a drug dealer wishes for his customers to remain alive so he can sell them more heroin. That's not stopping Frederick County in this case. There are 20 states that have so-called drug-induced homicide laws. Maryland is not among them. There are a number of studies that claim that such laws don't work. In Frederick County, Maryland, Scott Broom, WUSA 9.